another episode of Common Sense. In today's episode, we have a very special guest with us today, the Miss Kyara Weeks.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course,
Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. Back to like when you first started playing ball. What was your memory like? First falling in love with basketball.
I mean, so I have two brothers. One was younger, and I have an older brother. But I also have an older cousin. Who was from Cambridge, and Michael Green. Shout out to Mikey. But basically, my brother and my cousin, I used to live in Coast at the time, and the old Cambridge port that was like off of Magazine Street. We lived on Pleasant Street across from New Image. And then my mom obviously had to work, so I would always have to get watched by my older brother and cousin. And so the way that it worked was it was like Cambridgeport School, and then it was like Graham Parks. And if you remember the old school Graham Parks, they had like a little basketball court, and then the playground was like around the corner. But you couldn't see the playground from the basketball court.
Okay.
So obviously my brother and my cousin being older, they were like, well, we have to keep an eye on you, and so you can't go play in the park. So it was watching them, and after a while, I was like, I want to play. And they were like, well, you can play as long as you play by the rules. So I remember getting on there and getting the ball, and they're like, travel, go sit down. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So it was very quick. Like, I had to catch on very quick of, like, what the rules were in order just to play, because if I had to go with them, which was going to be a majority of the time, I had to learn the rules. So I remember, being there and not being too good, but enough to keep my own and kind of play a little bit. And it's funny because I remember when I learned how to put the ball through my legs, I had to be like 6 or so. And remember when you used to go to the like a supermarket and you used to have the balls in the little case with the lines, with the rubber lines. Yeah,
I have
like
13
all of that.
points on there every time I went to Walmart.
But back then it was Kmart.
Yeah,
it was Kmart, not Walmart. So, but I remember doing that, and I had one of those balls, and I was like outside my house because we had a backyard, but we couldn't use it all the time. So I was on the front, and I was showing my cousin Mikey, like, oh, look, I can do it. And I was like, put it through. So then that's when he was like, okay, like, she's got something. She's actually been practicing.
Yeah.
And so my mom signed me up for the YMCA, and I had been playing for a little bit before then, and the YMCA used to have to stand on the circles, and you couldn't move. You could just put your hands up. And I was always a kid that's like, well, if they're right there and I can block them, I can block them. So that didn't last too long for me playing the YMCA because the rules, again, I got introduced to basketball, learned how to play the rules, you can play.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started, and I just loved it, I guess, because it got me to connect with my older brother who's 10 years older than my older cousin who's 7 years older. I got to connect with them and kind of be part of their crew. So that's nice. Kind of where it started.
Okay. But what about ball specifically that you fell in love with? Was it the competition? Was it the activity?
Yeah.
What about it?
I mean, I think it is everything about the game. I would consider myself a pretty like disciplined individual, but I learned that from basketball. There are so many lessons that you learn from sports that life isn't always able to teach you. So, from basketball, I learned very early, you get what you put in.
For sure.
So the more and more I practiced when my brother and my cousin wasn't watching, I was able to perform when I actually got to, go with them. But I love competition. Everything is a competition.
For sure. Me too. I feel you. I feel you on that one.
It's tough. Especially my fiance, he hates it. He's like, it's not a competition, but everything has to be.
What are some of the challenges about ball? Like when you were playing coming up, what were some of the challenges that you faced through your career? Early on, I would say.
I would say, back then AAU wasn't as big. So like now it's a whole different kind of industry. Like you're not getting recruited, you're not going to a top college, or you're not going to be known as a prospect unless you do play AAU, which is like the amateur league of travel basketball. And so I started playing with a Somerville team first. It was called the Bay State Demons. And we would go to tournaments, but it wasn't necessarily big. And then once I got to high school, shout out to my coach, Coach Davis, who was my coach at the time. She had always taught at the Bentley camp, and apparently at one of the camps, the Bentley camp that I went to that year, there was a coach from one of the AU teams, and so, my coach just told me, just be you, make sure you're coachable, make sure you keep your head. And what I did in that camp, they were like, you know what, we want you to be on our team. We think that you have a lot of potential, and, we'll kind of get you a sponsor so that you can play on the AAU team, because AAU was big time money. And, my mom was a single mom, so being able to afford bills, food on the table, clothes on your back, and now an extracurricular activity that's hundreds of dollars, it's kind of tough. So, I appreciate that opportunity, and I think for me, I used that as I continue to go on in life, of just using that. But one of the biggest obstacles was, getting my mom to believe. She wasn't necessarily someone that played in sports, so she was like, "What do you mean?" Or AAU is typically on the weekends, and we were a big church family, Bible study during the week.
Oh, yeah, that's a conflict.
So you mean you miss your church, not God? So my cousin had to talk to her a little bit and just let her know the opportunities that were available. So, auntie, if she can do this, she can get a scholarship to go to college. And, that was my mom's main goal, do better than I did. So my mom had gotten her associate. So it was automatic. You have to get your bachelor's. That's the minimum point. So I was able to use that. But I would say, just having the opportunity, finances, and then also, my mom feeding into it.
Cool. Your high school career was insane. She dropped 1,000 points in high school, yo. Cambridge Ridge Latin. Like, look her up. She's nasty. She'll give you favorite player 40. Easy. So how was it like going into high school? How was that transition? Once you fell in love with ball, now you're moving on to high school. Did you feel like you can compete at this point? Were you still kind of doubting yourself? Where were you at? How did you feel?
No, I don't ever think I was a player that doubted myself. Okay. I mean, it was different back then. I mean, we had Light League. So I know the boys, especially like the older crew, they used to play at Hoyt, and they had the boys league down there in Area 4 as well. But Light League was also at Area 4. That was ran by Carol Thomas at the time. So a lot of the times, in the summer times, I was, competing against, the Stephanie Dardens, the Selenas, Gwen, a lot of the big names, Vanessa, and these were players that had won a state championship at Ringe. Yeah. So being in the 6th grade, I was at Harrington, Charles G. Harrington graduate. It doesn't exist anymore in Cambridge, but I was the last graduating class from there, and I was in the 6th grade playing on, the middle school team. So I was always able to compete. And then in the summer times, I was already competing with these girls. Yeah.
So coming in.
So for me, and then plus I played with my brother and my cousin, so I was never intimidated, when stepping onto the court with other females. And then when I got to high school, it was mainly just, understanding and learning Coach Davis's ways, because she was definitely very tough, very disciplined. You're going to play by the rules and play my way. Gotcha. Type of thing. It didn't matter who you were.
Smooth. Now let's talk about your game. Was there anybody that you idolized? How did you play when you were on the court? I know you were a point guard, but were you pass first? Did you want to get yours off? How did the game come to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like I would definitely mirror my game to a Chris Paul.
Oh, nice.
Where
I could see it.
Right, where it's definitely pass first, but I'm going to score when the opportunity's there. So I always like to get my teammates involved. And I know my cousin Mikey used to tell me all the time, like, he probably wanted me to be more of a shooting guard. So he'd like that killer mentality, that killer instinct. He used to always say that. Like, I'd score 20. He's like, you could have had 30. Like, there were so many shots that you didn't take. So, but I was cool with it. I loved playing with my teammates. I was kind of the one that I enjoyed making the pass versus the bucket.
Okay.
But I definitely got crazy with the handles. I definitely didn't play any.
You see these highlights.
I definitely didn't play any games when it came to that. That was a joy, and I think when I kind of got to high school, I had to learn that it was more about running the play and scoring the basket versus kind of mixing you. Because in 8th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, I was kind of like, come back, come back
come
again.
back.
So I was
You was having fun out there.
I was definitely there. The crowd, oh yeah, making people fall. Yeah, I remember all of that.
Nice.
Remember all that.
Transitioning on to college, Fordham University. How was that like for you? How was that?
That
shift?
was different. I mean, even the experience alone, just getting recruited,
Yeah.
that's a whole big journey in itself. Especially not having anybody to guide you. I didn't have anyone in my family that did it, so it was hard to kind of navigate. But I was, asking my AAU coach, Kyara, who played at Notre Dame, how do I navigate this? How do I navigate that? And then learning when coaches are genuine in terms of what they're telling you. Learning the game, where do I fit in on this team? Where do you see me
Sure.
going? But for me, it was definitely picking an opportunity at a university where I was going to get a good education because, my mom didn't play that. I was able to play basketball so long as I got an education. And so for me, it was a matter of, where am I going to be able to compete at a high level, but also get the degree. And my last 2 schools were Brown University and Fordham.
Okay.
Yeah, I chose the A-term versus the Ivy League.
I like it though. You still
I couldn't go bad either way in terms of academics.
No, for sure. That's what's up. I appreciate you telling me all that. Your career was fascinating. You guys should look her up, man. She was crazy out here, man. But in terms of the next generation, what would you tell a young up-and-coming female basketball player that's probably, in 8th grade and they're not sure how to handle it? Like, what advice would you give to them?
Just keep working at it. Like I said before, you get what you put in. So a lot of the times if you put a lot in, you'll get a lot out. And it's just believing in that. When you get to the college level, it's crazy. Until you've been there, until you've been there, you don't really understand. But, definitely put your wants, needs, and dreams first and breathe that.
For sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go pro. My idea around playing basketball wasn't necessarily to go pro. It was to get a free education so that I can get the job. I came from a mom that was on, Section 8. We never lived in the projects, but she was on Section 8. We had food stamps at one point and different things along those lines. So it was she always taught me, do better than I did.
Sure.
And then doing that, I understood very early that. So for me, it's kind of understand your environment, understand your situation in sports, whether it be basketball, whether it be, soccer, whatever the sport may be. If you have an opportunity, especially for inner city kids, especially for minority women, we're the double whammy. You're a woman, you're a female, so you're a minority.
Yeah.
And then if you're, a person of color, that's the double whammy. And as you know, the statistics are not fit in our favor. So if you can get an opportunity to get a degree and you don't have that debt that you have to pay back, now when you're making your money, that's all coming home to your bills versus
100%.
going back to Sally Mae.
100%. For sure. Definitely. So what's next for you? What you got coming up with the pipeline? Are you still involved with ball?
Yeah, I actually coach. I coach at Windsor, the Windsor School, which is a prep school for all girls. It's actually in Fenway. A lot of people don't know about it.
It's in the cut. Actually,
Yeah.
I used to do security way back, and they actually placed me there.
Yeah.
It's literally in the cut.
Yeah.
Nowhere to be found. But
Yeah. Definitely. But I coach there, so I coach there for the season, and I'm the varsity head coach. I enjoy, teaching the players the game, even if the player's not going to go on, to play in the college level or play professionally. It's the life lessons that, inspire them that they can do it. I also like training in terms of teaching basketball players the right things. This is how you do a crossover. This is how we're going to get to the rack. This is how we're going to be your strength and conditioning.
Fundamentals is key.
No, it is.
For
It
sure.
is. And I'm actually starting to train my 10-year-old cousin. So, and
You keep
it's
it
a
in the
guy.
family.
Yeah. Everybody's got to eat. Everybody's got to
for sure.
eat. So, in terms of that, I have a daughter. She's 13 months now.
Did
so
you give her the Fisher Price hoop yet?
No, not yet. But
Not
she
yet?
has this one from Amazon that, you know, she can sit because she's not fully walking yet, so she can sit and play with it. So my hope is that she'll be a basketball player.
Nice.
You know, everybody tells me, well, what if she? I'm like, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk, because that might crush my heart. But you know, just in terms of pouring into her, you know, and what she can do. And then I also have a bonus daughter with my fiance. She's 14. So in terms of, you know, her learning the game and going into sports, I'm all about empowering young black girls because there's definitely not an emphasis to watch out for young black girls. So if I can make that change in terms of, you know, being a limelight and an outlet for them, that's what I want to do. And, you know, career-wise, you know, I've gotten my certificate from Cornell with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So in my lane, I'm a project manager now, so I'm trying to move into diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now let's even the playing fields and make sure corporations and companies are hiring people of color and women and making sure they're in, you know, decision-making roles.
That is definitely an expanding field. It's looking good.
Yeah.
It's looking prosperous. So yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time. Common Sense, keep it locked.
Thanks.